Picture this. You step off a plane in Dubai, your phone buzzes back to life, and in seconds you are streaming ultra high definition video on one of the fastest mobile networks on Earth. The signal feels invisible, automatic, almost boring. But behind that smooth connection, almost every antenna, every base station, every core network element is made by one company from one city in China. While you are scrolling in the back of a taxi, Huawei quietly has end-to-end control of the network under your feet. Here is the twist almost nobody talks about. While Washington and Brussels spent years debating whether to ban Huawei, the United Arab Emirates quietly built its entire nationwide 5G system on it. From Dubai's glass towers to Abu Dhabi's ports, low latency connections run logistics, smart city projects, and luxury services, all on Chinese hardware and software. And the UAE is not a weird exception. It is a live demo of a deeper reality. China is building the default network for most of the human race. So why should you care who built the signal your phone rides on? Because this is not just about faster downloads. It is about who owns the rails of the future internet. 40 of the world's top 50 telecom operators work directly with Huawei. That means when you open social media in Sao Paulo, hail a ride in Nairobi, or stream music in Jakarta, your data probably crosses Chinese-built gear, even if your phone brand is American or Korean. On paper, the West is decoupling from Huawei. The United States has banned its gear, the United Kingdom ordered operators to rip it out, and Brussels warns about high-risk vendors. But here is the part nobody expected. Those headlines barely touched Huawei's real power base. In the background, its equipment still routes calls, texts, and data for hundreds of carriers serving billions of users. You see the logo on your phone. You almost never see the logo on the tower your signal actually hits. To understand how this happened, you need to look at the map the way Beijing did. Analysts talk about the Global South, a loose term for Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and parts of South Asia. These are fast-growing regions with patchy infrastructure and governments desperate for cheap, fast connectivity. Demographically, they are the main event. Roughly 85% of the world's population lives there. The rich global north, North America, Europe, Australia, and a few others, is only 15%. Now ask yourself this. If you win the networks for the 85%, who really owns the internet? China answered that question early. While Western governments obsessed over protecting their own 15% slice, Huawei and Chinese policymakers treated the other 85% as the primary market, not a side bet. They offered end-to-end packages from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G, bundled with aggressive financing and fast deployment in places Western firms saw as too risky or not profitable enough. Africa is the clearest example. From dusty rural towers in Kenya to dense urban grids in Nigeria and South Africa, Chinese vendors built most of the 3G and 4G networks and now anchor early 5G rollouts. Industry estimates put their share of African telecom infrastructure well above half, and in some markets close to monopoly. Western companies largely refuse to build at scale in low-income, low-revenue markets. Huawei stepped in with cheap gear, vendor credit from Chinese banks, and turnkey deployment. For many African governments, saying yes to China meant getting nationwide coverage a decade sooner than waiting on Western capital. That decision is now baked into how their digital economies grow. E-commerce, fintech, cloud services, and eventually 5G-powered logistics and telemedicine will run on base stations, fiber backbones, and core networks largely supplied by Chinese firms. In a minute, we will get to why that matters for data sovereignty. But first, look at the raw numbers that made this possible. According to industry analysts like Del Oro Group, Huawei controls around 42% of the global 5G core network market. The core is not just another box. It is the brain that authenticates users, routes traffic, and delivers services. Zoom out to all telecom equipment, and Huawei holds roughly 31% of the market, ahead of Ericsson in the low 20s and Nokia in the mid-teens. In a scale-driven industry, that means almost 1 in 3 carrier-grade devices on the planet carries Huawei code. And here is where the stakes jump. A 5G core is not something you casually swap like a phone case. It is a decade-long commitment to software updates, security patches, and new features. Once a carrier picks a vendor, integration costs and operational habits lock that choice in. That is why reports like Gartner's Magic Quadrant for 5G core, which place Huawei firmly in the leader box, matter so much. They give risk-averse carriers cover to bet billions on a single supplier. But Huawei is not just selling boxes anymore. It is rebuilding the brain itself with what it calls an AI core network. Instead of static rules, the core ingests real-time data from millions of cells and devices, and machine learning models adjust bandwidth, latency, and power use on the fly. Self-optimization means the network learns from rush hour, stadium events, even natural disasters, and retunes itself in minutes, not months. For cash-strapped operators, that promises higher performance with fewer engineers. Then comes self-maintenance. By mining logs and telemetry, Huawei's predictive systems flag failing components before users notice, cutting outages and expensive field visits. The roadmap goes further toward what its engineers describe as an agentic core, where swarms of software agents negotiate resources and spin up custom network slices for factories, ports, or citywide surveillance in real time. If 5G infrastructure grows into a multi-trillion-dollar market by the early 2030s, whoever controls the AI at the core controls how that money and data flows. Now circle back to Africa and the wider global south. These regions did not just buy hardware. Many operators signed multi-year managed services deals, effectively outsourcing day-to-day network operations to Chinese engineers. That creates a softer, deeper lock-in. Switching later means retraining staff, rewriting procedures, and spending huge capital to rip and replace gear. Users get cheaper data and better coverage today, but their countries tie their digital future to a single technological and political ecosystem. Beneath the economic upside lies a harder question. Who ultimately controls the data? Traffic metadata, signaling, and lawful intercept capabilities all sit inside closed-source systems designed abroad. There is no public proof of systemic abuse, but regulators have to trust opaque maintenance contracts and remote management tools. If geopolitical tensions rise or sanctions tighten, deeply tied operators could face delayed software updates, supply shocks, or subtle pressure in diplomatic disputes. The network becomes leverage. Meanwhile, in the West, the story sounds very different. Starting in 2018, the United States pushed allies to rip out Chinese gear, imposed export controls, and blacklisted Huawei from buying advanced American chips. That hurt its smartphone business and limited its presence in rich markets. But here is the uncomfortable reality. Those moves barely dented its momentum across Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia, where the urgent problem was not spying. It was simply getting millions of people online. So we end up with a split world. In the global north, 5G debates focus on security reviews, spectrum auctions, and which Western vendor wins the next contract. In the global south, Huawei has already become the default answer, not the question. Its code runs in switching centers, its fiber lights undersea cables, its radios sit on rooftops from Lagos to Dubai. For billions of people, China is not an alternative network provider, it is the network. Here is why this matters for you, even if you never set foot in Nairobi or Jakarta. 5G and the networks that follow it are the rails for everything. Streaming, logistics, self-driving cars, telemedicine, smart factories, and billions of Internet of Things sensors. If one company, closely tied to one government, dominates those rails for 85% of humanity, that reshapes who has leverage over standards, data flows, and even which apps and services can thrive. This is not just a tech rivalry. It is an infrastructure power shift. The big question now is what happens after 5G. Do we move into a world where networks, standards, and even app ecosystems diverge between a Chinese-led stack and a Western one? Or do countries try to hedge, staying on Huawei gear while layering on new rules and oversight? The choices governments and operators make in the next few years will decide whether the internet stays mostly interoperable or fractures along geopolitical lines. And you will feel that in everything from roaming to which services you can access abroad. So next time your phone snaps onto a blazing fast 5G network in a foreign airport, remember this. You are not just connecting to the internet. You are plugging into a geopolitical choice that was made years ago, often far from public debate. Huawei's silent takeover of the global South's networks is already done. The real battle now is over what rules, what safeguards, and what alternatives, if any, will shape the 6G and AI-driven networks that come next. If you want a deeper dive into how this could split the future internet and what it means for jobs, privacy, and power where you live, tell me in the comments. Do you think countries should rip and replace, double down on Huawei, or build their own alternatives? Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next breakdown on 6G, AI cores, and the new infrastructure race that is already underway. Because the networks of the future are being built right now, and most of